Our 2400G showed that we can do a decent amount of gaming with high-end titles that require a lot of performance, even though we didn't have a video card. But what about a title like Apex Legends? Well, it's built off the old engine that the original Titanfall, that's it, Titanfall was built off of. So the graphics are great and you don't need a massive system to run it. So I ran over to Micro Center, spent about $500 to see what we could get. I went a little bit over that budget, we'll talk about that at the end, but here are the parts that we chose. So we are actually stepping the processor down one notch from our 2400G to a 2200G. We have got that plugging into our ASRock B450M motherboard. Normally at Micro Center you can get good bundle deals. There were no bundles for the 2200G. And rather than step it up to a 2400, I took the approach of wanting to have a future upgrade in mind, which is the graphics card, which we mentioned. So we went ahead and saved a couple bucks on this to put it towards our graphics card. Now in terms of memory, it's 8 gigs of 2666 DDR4 running in dual channel. So we're gonna try and push that up a little bit higher if we can. Now we've got a 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive right here, but I'm kind of taking a chance here. I went with the Inland Professional 240 gigabyte SSD, coming in at about $27. Now for a case, I went with the Thermaltake V100. You can go with any case you want. Case pricing seems to be kind of all over the place. I couldn't find any cases at Micro Center in the $20 range. This one came in at $34. It's a basic ATX case, no frills, doesn't even have a window. So yeah, just basically determine what you want to spend on the box to put your parts in and kind of put a placeholder there. And then we've got a 500 watt EVGA 80 plus power supply. Now this would be extremely overkill for just a 2200G. But like I said, we want to do no graphics card and graphics card as this airplane's flying in, ruining our shot once again. Now, the best thing that's happened so far in 2019 is the mid-range GPU battle that's happening here. We talked earlier, well, late last year, about the RX 590, kind of replacing the RX 580. And we originally had an RX 570 in our cart until we realized we could actually get a PowerColor RX 580 Dragon, which is an 8 gigabyte card, for not $199, which that's showing there. Because of the competition taking place now in the low to mid $200 range, the RX 580 got pushed down in price significantly. So that's the card we're going to be using for our discrete card. Now it all came in at a total, including the graphics card with tax, of $567.76. That's $40.84 in tax. We got the graphics card for $168. So you can reduce that from the total cost. If it performs like you want with just a 2200G with built-in Vega, then you can do it for under $400. Or if you're like us and you're a little bit of an elitist and you want some GPU, $567. So let's go build it and see how Apex Legends runs.
So yeah, basically Jay left me because he had to go do some house stuff, which means I guess I'm building this thing. Which means...
So this is what you get for approximately $567 from Micro Center. I made one change to this though. Well, actually Phil built it, obviously. And I guess it turned out all right considering he's a noob and an Apple fanboy. But I added a case fan on the front of this case. So the Thermaltake case, I don't even remember which model it was. What was it? The V100, not a bad case for $34.99, I gotta be honest with you. It's got fully intake filters on all the intakes, including the side, which I have off right now so you can see the build. And I think most people can find a 120 or a 140 millimeter fan laying around. We just used a basic Fantex case fan here, nothing special about it. But that way we're not dealing with purely negative pressure, which is what we had here because we had one exhaust fan in the back and that was it. So I'm gonna go ahead and button this guy up because we want to see how performance is and how temperatures and stuff are without any sort of influence. And by that I mean leaving the case side panel off. Now, one thing we didn't mention though is by getting the Radeon RX 580, we actually get 3 games with this. And that's something I want to keep in mind here because who we're speaking to in this video is someone that's like, I really need to build a computer, but I don't have a lot of money. But the Apex Legends game seems like a lot of fun and I want to play it. So we're speaking to the person building a tower specifically to play that game. The fact that you can get 3 games on top of the one you want to play means now you can play 4 games with this. So we're going to be testing Resident Evil 2 as well with this. But of course, we're going to start with out of the box settings. We're going to do a small overclock on this because, as I've said, we overclock everything around here. It's what we do. Free performance. Take it. So we got to kind of sort of get a baseline here. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's start up Afterburner, like I said, so that we can monitor. We're going to run Firestrike, and we're going to be comparing, obviously, non-overclocked to overclocked. So here's our baseline with stock CPU and stock graphics card. A 10,720 in Firestrike. Our individual scores that we can compare, a 14,571. 7288 and a 4711. Now, because we're running a B450M motherboard, this is the ASRock variant, we're not gonna be pushing the overclocks very far. So we're gonna go from 3.5 to about 3.9. So I'm just gonna bump up the frequency. Actually, we can do 3950 because I've already tested this actually. So 3950, just below 5 gigs. We're gonna go 1.42, there, 1.425, I guess. And then we are running the XMP on the memory. So we're gonna go ahead and load the XMP profile, which is our 2666. Now we wanna give a little more cooling to the CPU. It's at 2000 RPM on the stock fan. This is the stock 2200G fan. It's the one that's really skinny. It's like, the one we have in here is about half the thickness of this. So it is definitely intended for a small TDP. When you start overclocking on a stock cooler, again, that's half this thickness, you can only go so far. So that's all we're changing here. We're not changing any of the power saving modes, any of that stuff. Just bumping the frequency up to 3950. 2666 on the memory. It was 2133 prior to that, and we know Ryzen likes fast RAM. So we're gonna see what kind of an improvement that gets us, along with our graphics card overclock. So we actually gained performance without even overclocking the graphics card yet, just because the 2200G was holding back the RX 580 slightly. So if we go ahead and pull up our original scores here, you can see we went from a 10720 to an 11,150, but our physics score came up quite a bit. So 7288 up to an 8556. This is what pulled our whole score up, obviously. So what we're gonna do now is, again, these same tests. We're gonna go ahead and save this one, and then we're gonna run it with overclocked graphics card, only 100 megahertz. I'm pushing it plus 100, which is actually not bad for the RX 580, which is gonna give us a core speed of about 1450. Could probably push it farther, but I'm going to a number that I believe most people could achieve rather than running a ragged edge overclock, which isn't going to be very indicative of a kind of a mass result. So that's my logic there. And then we're going to run game testing with the speeds at which we left it overclocked. So our baseline was a 10720, we're now at 11,689. The original graphics card score was a 14,625, now it's a 15,598. And like I said, all I did was a plus 100, it was 1350, now it's plus 100, maxed out the temp limit and power limit. And I pushed the memory clock plus 50, now that's 50 times 4, so I actually pushed it by 200. So it makes our effective, what, 8,200 on our, I think that's how math works, yeah. Fun fact, I said, or well, spoiler I guess, I said at the start of this video we were gonna test it with the 2200G only, with the APU. Phil actually tested that, and I believe in 1080p he was getting like 20 to 30 FPS in low. And then with 720p was getting 40 to 50 FPS on low. So not great. This is where a 2400G would probably do a bit better, but the fact that we got a discrete GPU in here, RX 580 that stayed within our budget, we are definitely gonna be doing all right, I think. Also, I've never played this game, so I'm gonna be completely lost, and I'm playing on Phil's account, so that's fine with me. Oh, that's bad guy. Hi.
Thanks.
Now, one thing Phil was telling me is when you're above the map like this, looking down, this is the worst FPS you'll ever get, because you can see the whole map. The draw distance is huge. I mean, there's a lot for it to be handling here, but obviously once you're down inside the map, that's when you're gonna get you know, the FPS you'd expect when you're playing. So we're getting 58. Hey, guns! So we're getting, what, 90 FPS? Not terrible. Definitely not 144, but it's over 100. Dude, this FPS is so solid. You could not have built this a year ago for this price. No way. So it looks like our card's getting ready to hit about 80C, but as we can see, we're still solid on our clock. Nothing's changed. It hasn't throttled down, so that's good. Our FPS is still sitting in the 90s, so no complaints there. It's certainly designed to run at this temperature. Oh. So it's pretty obvious you could play Apex Legends at 100 FPS with this setup right here. Again, within the $500 price range, which is insane. Hey, you leveled up, Phil. You're welcome. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and check out one of the titles that comes with it though. Like I said, Resident Evil 2. Probably gonna be a very similar situation, I think. Not an incredibly difficult game to run, but a AAA title that comes with this card nonetheless. So since you get it, might as well at least check it. Wow, look at the FPS so far in this cutscene. Okay, so this is one of the extra modes. This is the Fourth Survivor, where you play as one of the special forces that was sent in to get the virus, and we're down here in the sewers. Wow, that is smooth. Holy crap, Phil, look at that. It's 115 FPS, but man, that is smooth. Now, even though we're in the sewers, this is still very indicative of what game performance is going to be like, because this is how the whole game is. You're not outside in some big, large world. You're in dark, very moody lighting type of instances. So we're getting here, another 100 FPS in here. Oh, I missed his head. Yeah. All right, I think it's pretty obvious that this dogs. Whoa, jet, reload! Ah! No animals were harmed in the filming of this video, except for those 3. What's the FPS in here, 100? Ah! I think it's safe to say that Resident Evil 2 is gonna run just fine. Over 100 FPS, right? How can you complain? And it's V-Sync, FreeSync, Adaptive Sync, all the syncs. Kitchen sink, it's all here. So yeah, it's kind of noisy right now because the side panel's off. I wanted to see if by taking the panel off, if the temperatures would drop. We're from 82 down to 76. So obviously if you put more fans in this, more exhaust fans too. Remember, we had this one on the back, it's very toasty. But by taking the side panel off, the temperatures dropped already down to 76. But that's, I mean, you can add fans for under $10 a piece. You don't need super expensive RGB maglev type fans in a build like this. You wouldn't want to spend $50 on fans and then not be able to afford a better component. That doesn't make any sense. But we saw that even if they hit 82, we did not lose any clock speed. And what you can see here is that for this very budget-friendly price point, you can definitely get into gaming. And what we also showed with the 2400G is you could do the same concept of what we did here by not buying a GPU. You'd get less performance than this, but you'd probably get 40 or 50 FPS. You could enjoy Resident Evil 2. You could play some Apex Legends, probably not super competitively, but nonetheless, you'd be playing a game rather than wishing you could play games because you don't have a computer. Slap in a very price competitive RX 580, which we put in here out of Micro Center for under $170. And as you can see, 100 FPS in both games. No problems. Obviously, you'd still need a monitor and keyboard and mouse and all that, but we don't include those in these budgets, nor do we include operating systems, because people always either have something they're already going to use, a TV, you can get a box set for 10 bucks or something, mouse and keyboard. Those are all very subjective pieces that you can usually add about $100 to $150 to your build, depending on how nice or cheap you want to go. Also, to operating systems, there's very creative ways to have operating system like Windows without necessarily having to spend $100 plus for it. We don't condone or talk about those ways around here, but anytime I include an OS, people get mad and say, why'd you include an OS? You could totally get it for free. And then when we don't include it, people say, why didn't you put in an OS? Because that's a cost. There's options on both sides of those fences. So anyway, guys, time to go. Thanks for watching our ultimate Apex Legends budget build, which you can see gets you much more